Do you find yourself bullish when it comes to prospects for 2018?
Not at all. I'm afraid I look at the. I guess I look at the order book and just the sheer weight of the order book, irrespective of what one might happen on the demand side. I just see the order book as being overwhelming. I see the prospects for some improvement in the products tanker sector and the chemical sector towards the end of the year probably. But generally speaking, I think it's the order book that's the issue in the short term. A bit more into the future, I think there's every prospect of some recovery in both of those markets.
In and amongst that, you seem to be saying in the session that the MR tankers could be a good news story.
I think good news from two aspects. One is if you look at the age profile of the products tanker fleet and you look at it in individual segments, then what you see is there's something approaching 10 million deadweight of MRs that are over 15 years currently. So arguably they're going to be removed from the market over the next, let's say, 5 years, irrespective of what happens to or the impact of BWMS or the lower sulfur emissions from 2020. I think the other side of the coin is that if you look at MRs generally, these are good ships for getting maximum utilization on. I think in the conference, a figure of 80% was mentioned by Kim, for example. And that's what we see with the various owners with whom we work. They're achieving those sorts of utilization rates. And again, taking up a point about 2020 and maybe a lot of arbitrage opportunities on low sulfur fuel and so on. Again, I could see that as being a sector that would be certainly worth looking at for the future.
And finally, my famous question, if you're mandated to invest in the tanker market, both on the new build side and on the second-hand market side, where would you invest and why?
Okay. Well, I'm going to change my mind on the new building side, apart from saying I wouldn't build at all. But just thinking about the whole thing, and now I've had a chance to think about the answer, and just thinking about the crude oil side of the business, and the fact that I think, as Paddy mentioned, at some stage we are going to see OPEC begin to open the taps again. Whether it's 2018, 2019, I'm not sure. We think it's probably a bit later than earlier. But when that happens, one can see the potential for VLCC demand to increase. We're still seeing rising crude oil exports from the States. Placing an order today for delivery, let's say, in 2 to 3 years' time, might seem quite a sensible thing to do. So on the new building side, I've kind of switched horses and probably go for a VLCC rather than what I think I said earlier was an MR or an LR2 ship.